News updates and breaking news can be added to your mobile phone. Just text the word news to 881120. I'm Rick Wallace, KMOX News.
Attention, everyone.
If you're ready, he's ready.
Let the show begin.
It's the Paul Cook Show.
Listeners may develop painful facial muscles from continuous smiling.
On KMOX.
I am smiling. Hello. I'm also very proud to be on KMOX this evening. As I was pulling in, I saw the Pride Fest in our new building here at Park Pacific. We are on top of the Pride Fest. Isn't it crazy looking at the trials of the moment, the big things you see, Trayvon Martin or even Paula Dean, perhaps Aaron Hernandez? You can just see with how people receive that stuff, how our culture is changing so much. Different demographics. It's exciting and also can be a little bit unnerving. In St. Louis, though, I think it's an awesome little nook where you can still count on some traditionalism. And not to say there's anything wrong with changing, but I love that we have our own character. And along with our sports teams, there's people, not just the mascots, but other locals who have emerged as character pieces as well. Like the Towel Man at the Blues games. There's another one at the Cardinal games, the Cardinal Cowboy. This guy with the World Series trophy and the big red cowboy hat and the full uniform is at every game. I know a little about his fascinating story, and it's time for you to hear it too. A lot of people see you. They want to know, who is this guy in the cowboy hat? And I've watched over the years your garb even change a little bit. Carter Rethwish is the Cardinal Cowboy. Thanks for joining us on KMOX.
Absolutely. Proud to be here, Paul. This is always fun. You know, I love a little bit of excitement we can create here in St. Louis.
We love being local on KMOX on Sunday nights. There's a lot of radio shows and stations that are out of town. Not on Sunday nights. So it's a real win-win for me when I can have you in, being the Cardinal flagship station, having a guy who is such a Cardinal fan. Tell me, how come? Where did this idea come in? We're going to have pictures on the website, but tell me, how did the idea for the Cardinal Cowboy get hatched?
Well, it actually stems back from the original Augie Busch red Cardinal Cowboy hat, right?
I remember that Cardinal Cowboy hat, the red hat he had.
Yeah, and they actually used to sell these. I've been interviewed by Major League Baseball. They came to my house. I won the Major League Baseball favorite fan, and I showed them where the tag was still on that hat that my dad purchased from Casey's Sports.
Wow.
Back in about 1982.
Casey's, was that at the Crestwood Mall?
That was, I think it was the Fenton location,
okay,
which is where I grew up. So
may she rest in peace. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So, so my dad originally purchased the hat way back when. And I was obviously a very avid baseball player. I played very competitively all the way through college. And then the accident happened we know about. But,
we're going to talk about that accident, too. So, you know, very interesting is people go through their peaks and their valleys, what has brought them here. So we're going to talk about that, a very interesting story. But, okay, you're hatching the idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my dad had bought the hat a while, you know, right during the 1982 World Series, if I recall. So that's where we say the Cardinal Cowboy was originated, and that's because the hat was purchased at that point. I would put it on. It was fit for an adult, right? But I would just throw it on for fun.
Mm-hmm.
From there, move ahead a few years, graduating as a senior in high school, played baseball in high school on the field at Busch, got pictures taken, all that. But for prom picture, my dad said, take the cowboy hat and put it on for just a couple. He's a semi-pro. We joke about semi-pro, but he's a semi-pro photographer.
Mm-hmm.
He does pretty well, and so he took this picture of me. And there's the original first photo you see me as a junior in high school wearing a cowboy hat. So with that, you know, continued to play baseball. Went away to college to play baseball. Got involved in the accident. That's where the tables were turned a bit.
Well, let's talk about that now. You know, you were playing baseball very competitively. You had hopes of becoming a professional baseball player.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people have followed the history or whatever, but there's just a couple of interesting accolades, if you will, or you know, the features of my career that happened back in the day. And one of them was, as a junior, I was named to the All-Metro team as an honorable mention. But as a junior, that's kind of extraordinary from the perspective that normally that's a senior's thing, but if you get enough stats up there, you get in the Metro team listed as a junior, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so my name was getting to be recognized, and then it moved around to senior year. Senior year, the highlight was being named the MVP for my Crestwood Lindbergh Connie Mack baseball team.
Wow.
And I played with some guys you probably know.
Yeah.
And ended up being selected as the most valuable player for my team. Now, that team was also the best. We ended up winning the Midwest region, so we were one of the best, 16 teams or 25 teams, whatever the breakdown is.
Great player on a great team.
In the country. And so that was kind of neat. So I go to the awards banquet, and they're going to name the MVP of the entire league. And that's the guy who ended up winning it is a guy by the name of Brian Rupp, who now is the AA manager for the Washington Nationals. So that was kind of the company I was in. He out-hit me a little bit, and I had more stolen bases, but he had more doubles, and so whatever. But I found out later another well-known Cardinal won that same award. Actually, two of them. There are two players in Major League Baseball, and Dave Freese is one of them.
Oh.
So that was kind of neat. But I got to talk to Dave,
Freese.
And he says, yeah, that's the same award he won. So there we are. I'm in college now, ready to play baseball. Transferred to Central Methodist University. And the coach there known me for years and said, hey, I'll get you as far as we can get you to go, and I'm sure you'll get picked up somewhere. We'll just see what happens. But also been talked into playing a little soccer. I played soccer real competitively, went to state championship a couple times in high school, and decided, all right, we'll do the soccer thing. So we go to play a game where we're playing a game at our home field there at Central in Fayette, Missouri, and go into overtime playing against Missouri Baptist University. And a goal could have been scored to set up the timing, but it was missed, and then we ended up going to a tie in overtime. So then we head on our path. My parents had driven all the way down. My dad's still a college admissions counselor there, and they said, we're here to see you for homecoming. Where are you going? I said, well, I got to go meet the girlfriend back in St. Louis. The guys are going to go watch the Eureka High School soccer game, and I'm riding along, and we're just going to go back to St. Louis. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, hey, Mom and Dad, here. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so end up down there on our way. We stop at the what's it called? Golden Corral Buffet in Columbia.
Oh, man. But that's probably before the chocolate volcano thing.
Yeah, well, they have quite a buffet there. And so I remember that was quote-unquote, the last supper, if you will. But we were on our way back then to St. Louis, and this is where I don't remember anything, what else had happened until after, or like days after. So anyway, going down Highway 109, which is out in Eureka, I was going to meet my girlfriend at the 7-Eleven. She was going to pick me up, and then we'd go out for the night. And I never showed up. The reason I didn't show up was because a drunk driver was actually spinning at us on Highway 109 out of control and hit us head on.
Wow.
If we had hit head-to-head on, we hit him on the side, he hit us head on. We hit him on the side, though, and if we'd have hit head-to-head, everybody would have died. But hit him, he flipped over us. The car's in a mangled mess. We're on the side of the highway. Fortunately, there's an ambulance not too far away at the Eureka Firehouse there, and so they quickly get to the scene. They pick up Jimmy Barnes, my good friend, rest his soul. He was in very bad shape. I took him to the hospital and didn't give him very good odds. He ended up passing away.
Was he driving or?
Yeah, he was driving our car.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the driver of our car. Then the right front passenger, we just celebrated about a 21-year anniversary now since the accident. But Jim Weatherly was in the right-hand front seat. And you could physically, this is kind of grotesque, but you could see underneath into his skull, and it was a bad laceration.
Oh, gosh.
I was coherent, apparently, and talking and carrying on conversation. And then began to have seizures. They'd seen where my jaw was probably broken, and it ended up being my jaw was shattered. A big laceration across my forehead that you can still see if I don't have a baseball hat on or it's in good lighting.
The Cardinal Cowboy hat covers up the laceration.
Yeah, I show it to people. It's kind of one of those scars of life. But yeah, so they said, well, all right, send the first ambulance. Let's get this first ambulance going, and we'll send Carter on the second one. He looks like he's okay, another good friend.
You're sitting there talking. You don't remember it, but you're sitting there talking, and someone has died, or they were close to dying at that point.
Yeah, severe head trauma. And so they actually had taken the drunk driver just as a matter of who they could get to first and put him in the ambulance also. Sean Soule was another guy in the back right seat, and he was not in as bad a shape as the rest of us. So at that point, they're about to send the ambulance, and I start to go into seizures. Again, don't remember this built-in defense mechanism, well designed by our creator. But so I start to freak out and start to go into convulsions, and this is a very torturous, painful event from what it's been described. But I don't remember any of this. And they said, stop. Pull the drunk driver out. The one he's got a little cut on his forehead. That's about all or his cheek. That's about all that had happened to him. And let's throw Carter in there, or else we don't think he's going to make it. So they put me in that ambulance. They shot me up with a drug called Dilantin. I don't know if I've actually researched this a few years ago to find out. But Dilantin was discovered, I think, back in the 60s. But it will stop seizures on the spot. But it can induce a coma.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I went into a coma. At which point, they made the emergency call to my parents and said, we can't tell you exactly what's happened here, but you better get to the hospital now. My dad's a pretty smart guy, and he said, I knew what questions they couldn't answer, so I said, can I talk to my son? And when they told him no, he knew it was bad.
He knew it was bad at that point. Oh, my gosh. Well, I want to hear the rest of this story. We got to take a quick break. But I'm hanging on by the edge of my seat, and I know everyone is. We're talking to Carter Rethwish. He's the Cardinal Cowboy. I always knew there was more to this guy than just a Cardinal hat and a Cardinal uniform, and we're going to find out more. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. It's the Paul Cook Show on KMOX.
The voice of St. Louis. News Radio 1120 KMOX. KMOX HD St. Louis. And 102.5 KEZK HD3 St. Louis. CBS
News updates and breaking news can now be added to your mobile phone. Just text the word news to 881120. I'm Rick Wallace, KMOX News.
The volume control adjusts the audio output level of the speaker or headphone.
And we suggest you turn it up right now. We've been expecting him. It's the Paul Cook Show on KMOX.
We're talking Cardinal baseball tonight. We're talking to a guy that doesn't miss a Cardinal game. I'm sure that you've seen him. Carter Rethwish is the Cardinal Cowboy. Always has the great kind of, I guess we would say, his copyrighted cowboy hat he's got on, and we're getting to know more about him. And you were just telling a story here before the break about what, I asked, what brought you to become the Cardinal Cowboy? And it's very interesting. It wasn't just a decision that was made. It's a life in the making and a detour of sorts from being a great, fabulous baseball player to a drunk driving accident. And I think that's very appropriate to talk about tonight. And perhaps we can give someone some pause and maybe even a little enlightenment on what goes down in a survivor of a drunk driving accident. We know you survived. You're telling us a story that you're at the hospital. They aren't letting you talk to your dad. He wanted to know more. Go ahead, Carter. Sorry about that interruption.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, they've risked me off to the hospital, at which point they've shot me up with this drug called Dilantin, and it did induce me into a coma.
A coma. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm in a coma at that point, and they tell my parents, I don't know at what point, it was shortly after the accident, I was there for days, but they said, look, the odds of Carter surviving this are less than 50-50. We're not going to give him. And so it's not like 50-50 to, be able to play baseball, or it's 50-50 to live or die. And so, thank God I didn't hear all that conversation. But and they didn't know me well enough, obviously. My dad makes a point. But, yeah, so they had ventilators, breathing apparatus, strapped down, arms restrained, and, about a week later, I'm still in a coma. And I start to come out of the coma. I release my hands from the restraints, which you're not supposed to be able to do because I don't want you to hurt yourself. Get my hands out of the restraints, pull the ventilator out of my throat, and sit up. And they say, "We think he's going to make it."
Oh, that was it. They said, "Hey, this guy might make it."
So wow. That was a good indication. And they said, "That's right." Both my parents were there.
At that time, awesome. What year was that, by the way?
That was 1991, September 21st was when the accident actually happened. So a few years ago.
Wow.
But, so at that point, they'd given me the go-ahead that I was probably going to survive. But then they wanted to prepare my parents for what was going to come.
You've been hit by a drunk driver, spinning on 109. Yeah, what was to come? What in your rehabilitation, talking to Carter Rethwish, the Cardinal Cowboy, what was in front of you?
Yeah, so at that point I had what they called frontal lobe executive skills head trauma. And that's the part of your brain that essentially manages everything else. And so at that point they're saying, look, and we had this conversation. I said, Dad, repeat to me one more time. And this was just a few weeks ago for Father's Day. And I said, was it true? I recall you saying this, but I want to hear you say it again. He's a straight shooter. He's well-educated. And he says, Carter, I'll never forget the time they told me while we were about to leave the hospital with you. And they said, you're probably going to have to take care of Carter for the rest of his life. And again, they didn't know.
He's alive, but you might have to take care of this normal human being. They didn't know the optimism and the glass half full kind of guy you are.
That's exactly what this is all turned into. So we'll get to that. But yeah, so I proceeded to say, my parents said, oh, all right, now, sophomore in college, probably need to take a semester off, come back home, and let's kind of recuperate from this. And I just refused. I said, you know what, I've got friends I know who dropped out of college who didn't get hit by a drunk driver, and I've got the staying power to make this happen, and I'm not dropping out. I refuse. So I went back to school away, kind of floated through school. The teachers knew what I had been through, but they made sure to pay a little bit of attention to me. But I still had to go to classes and pass the tests and do everything. Got some pretty poor grades, but didn't fail any classes.
You weren't out partying. You couldn't do any of that.
I couldn't even I couldn't consume any alcoholic beverages because I had to stay on Dilantin for at least 6 months because you can't just come off of it.
Oh, really? And by the way, tell me your parents thinking at that time where you said, no, I'm not going to drop out.
Yeah, well, my mom was pretty persistent. Not only should I drop out, but I should come home and stay and finish it out. And essentially, I just convinced them both. I said, hey, I'm going. This is it. I mean, yes, I'm not.
It's my life.
I'm not the most. I'm not as attuned as I was, before the accident. And people that saw me saw, Carter, you were so messed up. You couldn't recall who we were. You didn't know our names. People I'd known all my life.
Brain injury.
And it was difficult. But I was bound and determined, as they say. So with that, continued to progress and just stayed in school, got grades. Then I said, okay, a little bit of go back and want to stay closer to where I can see the girlfriend, go back to St. Louis University, finish up, school, stay on path. Stayed in school, graduated on time, then continued to go on. And after getting my diploma, I finished, actually, I was still 21 years old, and decided, all right, now I got to go to grad school. During that time, though, I actually started playing baseball again and played on some pretty good quality semi-pro teams in these men's leagues, et cetera, and reached out to a good friend of mine who I'd gotten to know over the years, and his name's Jay Davis. Rest his soul. He actually passed away October 26th last year in a car accident. But Jay and I, so it hits you from all sides. So that gives me a different perspective too. But Jay, I said to Jay, if you start this semi-pro team, I guarantee we'll all come play for you. And with that, he said, okay. And I felt, well, I better
now get myself in shape here.
I got to. So we were all playing ball very competitively. I said, all right, I'm going to do this. I got to be behind the scenes, helping out as much as I can. So we're driving all over the Midwest, trying to get registered, get on with these real competitive leagues, and we ended up doing that. So I started playing real competitive ball. We ended up being one of the top ranked teams. We ended up being the number one ranked semi-pro team in the country. Every year, after about our third or fourth year, we'd end up in that spot. 80 games a summer. So I'm wearing the baseball uniform for the St. Louis Spikes to play baseball, and I said, what the heck? I'd started wearing the red cowboy hat to the games.
The Augie Bush hat.
I wore the hat. I wore the jersey, and I said, by now, and I was getting started to call, my buddies were calling me the Cardinal Cowboy. So I said, I'm going to wear the baseball pants too. And I said, my perspective was, Paul, that, I've been in a coma. I was near death. I have a little bit different perspective on life than most people.
On courage and, living for the moment and being self-conscious about things. I mean, you're standing here today in that same outfit, and I love your courage.
Wherever, because it's turned into something that really makes a difference, I think. So, so I said, I'm going to wear the dang baseball pants with the jersey and the hat, and we'll just have some fun with it. And I was a computer guy, got a job working for Anheuser-Busch, worked there for about 10 years. Which was another thing that, after being told that I was going to somebody's going to take care of me, much less. And started grad school, finished grad school, and then said, all right, I'm going to wear this Cowboys get up to the Cardinal games. And so started doing it, and I said, what the heck, I'm a computer guy, do a little bit of web stuff, and I'm going to go by the name CardinalCowboy.com. And so by then it had kind of transgressed to about 2004. The Cardinals were in the playoff hunt, and that year they ended up losing in the World Series to the beloved Red Sox.
That's right.
Little be known, I played for the Red Sox back in the day. The Baldwin Red Sox.
The Baldwin Red Sox.
But so I was just so avid Cardinal fan and was pretty upset about that. But decided, hey, I'm wearing the Cardinal pants, the baseball pants, the jersey, and the hat, and I put up CardinalCowboy.com, and I just used to go around. At that time, I was still kind of an innovator with regard to technology, and I had a digital camera, which was still kind of unique back then. Mm-hmm. And we took this digital camera, we just took it around and handed the camera to one of my friends who would take pictures, and we'd say, hey, your picture will be up on my website for free. We just hope to help you enjoy the excitement. And we ended up with like 500,000 hits in the first week.
Oh, my gosh. So the Cardinal Cowboy was born.
There's where it had actually taken off. So that's when it became exciting. So it transgressed from there to now, hey, man, people are loving the excitement. There's so much fun to be had at the Cardinal games, and I truly espouse and profess to this day, I've had a number of opportunities to talk about this, but baseball essentially, and from my estimation, saved my life. Mm-hmm. Baseball had created in me that competitive drive to where I was going to win no matter what. And much like the Cardinals, I was talking to on another interview where the Cardinals aren't always the biggest, the fastest, the most money, all the most talented players like that you see on some of these other teams where they spend so much money to get them, but they somehow win 11 World Series
they don't have the salary. It's the Cardinal way, and even down to the Cardinal Cowboy with the Cardinal way.
Well, and I joke that they took over my psychological perspective back about that time after my accident, and together we've kind of come along. But the truth is, that's the perspective I've had, and it was my dad yanked me out of a psychiatrist's office who was trying to explain to me and my parents that I should just kind of lower my expectations and just be prepared to not be able to do everything I had set. My dad yanked me out of it. Says, "This guy should." He jokes, "This guy should be locked up."
Yeah.
You don't ever put that kind of information in front of, especially a 19-year-old kid who's about to try to survive and recover from a traumatic situation.
The dream. I want to hear more about, where it is now with the Cardinal Cowboy. And it's just so interesting. You see a guy who has all this spirit at a game, but to hear the story behind it and to know that it's pretty accurate for me to say, saved your life.
Absolutely.
The Cardinals saved your life. And so you're seeing that when you go to a game as well. And maybe there's somebody out there now who's like, wow, that sounds... It's like something I'd like to do. I want to be something, have my own website and begin to, create a character or even a mascot. We're going to talk about that a little bit, too. We're talking to Carter Rethwish, the man behind the cowboy hat. The guy who wears the hat with the trophy. We'll be back with Carter on the Paul Cook Show.
KMOX, live from the Classic Air Care Studios. Classic Air Care, for all your heating, cooling, and plumbing needs. Paul Cook Show on KMOX.
Oh, I'm having a good time on a Sunday night, and you are part of it. Thank you so much for joining us on KMOX. The last half hour or so, we've been talking to the Cardinal Cowboy. You have seen Carter Rethwish at the games. He's wearing the full Cardinal uniform with the cowboy hat, and there's always a swarm of people around him. You can even get the Cardinal Cowboy's autograph now at games and have some memorabilia when you leave the stadium. It's really cool to know what's behind all of the things he does and how carefully thought of and important it is to him and his life. And I know I've watched him to many other people. So, Carter, you described it. You become the Cardinal Cowboy. And tell me where it is now, this thing that you created.
Yeah, Paul, it's been more exciting than I ever imagined, but it kind of just goes along with my perspective on life, and that is to never stop, go after any dream you have, and proceed without worrying too much what people think. I mean, if I was too concerned what people think, my buddies joke with me saying, "You're the only guy that gets to watch the Cardinal game in his pajamas." But I've got this uniform that is like the guys you see similar to what you see on the field.
And you don't have any self-consciousness about it. And maybe someone would say something, you don't hear it, and you don't care. It's a great lesson for all of us who are going to dare to dream and dare to step outside of the box a little bit. That's, honest to God, Carter, that's why I'm talking to you right now.
Well,
because I noticed that about you, that you don't care.
That's it. You've got to go on, proceed with what. And there is always, it's amazing to me. I used to study this a bit back when I was working at Anheuser-Busch, and it's amazing. There's always, and this is true in life. This isn't, it happens on the baseball field, but especially in a competitive corporate environment, there's always somebody who's willing to find out something wrong about whatever it is, right? And there's always somebody who will take a shot just to try to help elevate themselves instead of. And I would joke, man, it's easier to lift yourself than to bring down others. That helps out everybody, and to do so. But there's some people who don't know that thought process.
They come up in that negative way. The only way we have them around here, we have them. Every business has that, and there's some reward to that. They feel I look better because they look bad, but it's so much easier on your karma, on your soul, and the pillow at night is softer when you're doing what you say.
Well, and I talk about you get into this vicious cycle going up instead of going down. It's a great cycle of continued positivity that turns on top of itself over and over again, because one positive thing leads to another. It leads to another. And you can't even focus on anything that happens negative because it starts your mind thinking that way. And as soon as you start to think negative thoughts, you start worrying about negativity, and then negative things happen.
Self-consciously looking back rather than looking forward. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's a really great message. Continue with how is it online? You said you got 500 hits on that one. Talk to me more about your presence at CardinalCowboy.com.
Sure. Yeah, 500,000 hits we end up getting on that. I mean, it's transpired into one thing after another. I've been interviewed dozens and dozens of times trying to share my message. But what it all boils down to, Paul, what it's really all about is I see the opportunity now, and I talk about this I've got clients that spend millions, or that make millions of dollars and spend millions of dollars in advertising and all this stuff. And I said, that's great that you've done so well, but what are you going to do to make a difference? What are you going to do to contribute? And to have all the money in the world doesn't really make you any better. It doesn't even make you feel any better, I don't think. Because I see some of these people, but when they get down to it, whose lives have they really affected? Where have they made the world a better place to really help somebody achieve and realize that they, too, can reach their goals and dreams?
I think my guy that I've always dreamed about, and I got to talk to, I shouldn't say I dream about him, a guy I've idolized, Zig Ziglar, who we lost this year, always said, you can be successful, but are you going to be significant? And I think that's kind of what you're saying. You can have that great success, but are you going to be significant?
Right. What do you want to be remembered for? Being a millionaire where everybody was a little jealous or just thought that's all you contributed? Or do you want to be somebody that made a difference? Because you can't take it with you, right?
Right.
So what are you going to do to make that difference? So now I've taken upon myself, in every spare moment I have, and a lot of people recognize that and see that, and I try to put up as much as I can to share, hey, I was at this event. I was at that event. I did this thing that I know you guys can also come out and partake in and participate in. And it's talking to the Disabled Athletes Association, and it's talking to going to the Komen Race for the Cure, or talking to dozens of different organizations.
You've got these boots, these red cowboy boots, which I was making fun of because they are bright and they're awesome, and they're snakeskin?
They're actually, I think they're ostrich. But
ostrich skin. They look so crazy, and he said he had worn the sole down where?
I actually ran the Race for the Cure.
In the boots.
Just because I thought it had to be authentic. And by the time I got done, I looked down. I'm like, why there's a little more air going into my shoe? And it was because I'd worn a hole in the sole.
I have worn a hole in the sole. You've seen him at games wearing a Cardinal uniform and that big red Augie Bush cowboy hat, talking to Carter Rethwish. He is the Cardinal Cowboy, cardinalcowboy.com. Continue with what you were saying about charitable and just giving back.
Sure. Well, and that's where it really boils down to. There are so many opportunities out there. I finally counted, and I've worked with about 50 different charities, and some of them a lot more than others. But just at any time somebody would like me to come partake, to create some of the excitement, if they're doing something positive, I'll show up to help them promote that.
If they're helping.
Yeah, if they're doing something good. It's because I had a lot of people that were there to support me through my accident, help me recover, and I feel like I've got to give back. And now, it's not even, I almost feel like it's selfish, but it's just so rewarding to get that awesome feeling you get when you put a smile on somebody's face. It's like, I'm not doing this for me to feel good, but
to look good, but I feel good by helping out.
Yeah, and there's so many people I think that miss that opportunity because they're just tired or worn out, long day, whatever it is, and if they would just take a little bit of time with a little bit of extra effort, and there's tons of people that do, but there's so many more that could do it more, to contribute and be out there and be part of it, because you really get to light somebody's light up and make them excited to be there and enjoy being alive. And that's one thing that most people, that's something you can't do with any amount of money.
I think that's why we were created. And we can sound, Pollyanna-ish or whatever, but that's why we were created, to help each other and build each other up. And I want this show, the Paul Took Show, to be about that. Another reason we're talking is not just talking about Snowden and the news and, espionage. It's about trying to help people feel better and learn a little bit of something. You have some specifics on how you can help charities.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Tell me about this. The Cardinal Cowboy, and what I like to do, I have come across with part of what I do with my company. I started my own consulting company, but we have charitable money that's being donated by Google. So if you would like to get your charity, it can only go to a charity. It's got to be a registered 501c3. Go to cardinalcowboy.com, click on the charity info link, and you'll have the information in front of you. And we can help you get, it's up to $10,000 a month that they'll help you with, that will help you get going and get you registered for.
And is that in advertising dollars at Google?
Yeah,
$10,000.
Yeah, and so with what I do for companies, if they could get $10,000, I mean, they hope to double or triple or quadruple, and sometimes we get 5 times their money, or more. But to start off and not have to pay that back, wow, that's an incredible. You can't lose with that, and we'll just manage that and make sure that you get it done right for you, and that's what we do.
CardinalCowboy.com.
You got it.
I always said, I wrote my book, Cooked in L.A., about my experience and my near-death life experiences, and I've always talked about writing your book. Are you writing your book? I think this would make a great book, what you talked about.
Well, yeah, I think, Paul, you and I both get so busy. That's something we both have. I remember when you reached out to me, I was like, wow, let's do it. That's one of my goals, man. That's one of my goals. But we got a lot to accomplish, and we'll get to that one for sure, I promise you.
That's my fault, getting too busy, but I want to make sure we get people to know about your courage, and that's why we have you on tonight.
Well, that's a great chance that we can make to change the world, make a big difference. You can also get a Cardinal Cowboy T-shirt out there. The proceeds go to the charities that I work with. So.
Now, you're not playing baseball at the semi-pro level. Tell us about your football real quick.
Yeah, I did get called out for one game out of retirement. I let the young Spikes guys run there. You had a great team. I came out and hurt my shoulder a couple weeks ago.
Oh, great.
And right before our last game for the Missouri Monsters. So for years after my accident, part of the story we kind of went through, I was offered a tryout with the St. Louis Rams. I was going to kick in college. Obviously, that didn't happen. I got into the semi-pro football, kicked a couple 50-yard field goals, and they're like, wait, this isn't average. And so then they came up to me and said, you know this guy named Jeff Wilkins? I'm like, yeah, I've heard of him. And that was kicker for the Rams at the time. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, we'd like to have a tryout. We understand we got a kicker already, but we like to promote from within and whatever. So I got that tryout. I didn't obviously take the job away from Jeff, but proceeded to continue.
That's a thrill, though, to be able to try out like
sure,
that.
Sure, we get the St. Louis Rams going. That's kind of cool. So
yeah.
I love the Rams, too. But then the Missouri Monsters came to town. And I'd been asked to come out and try out for the number of different indoor teams, and I kind of just, with all I got going on. But I said, all right, so these guys will come out. I know the coach, and, if I'm the best guy, and I ended up being the best guy out there, I was about 20 years older than the average other kicker, much less the other player.
Rudy, yes.
And they selected me to kick for them, and that was a great opportunity because that's an awesome organization, too. And just to finally get to that professional level to actually get a paycheck for something
professionally to kick.
That I thought that I was qualified to do long ago. I had the accident happen, but God put me in a different path, and I'm here to make a difference a different way. And I'm not going to give up until I've affected hundreds of thousands of people if I can, but I want to make a difference. Even if it's just a few, that's a difference.
I know. You already have, and I know you will. He's not just some fat and happy fan. That's okay, but the Cardinal Cowboy is an athlete, too, and a baseball player. Come up and say hi, and make sure you tell him Paul said hi, too. We'll get this thing full circle. Check him out at cardinalcowboy.com. Carter, thank you.
Giddy up. Thanks, Paul.
No matter where my reckless soul takes me,